Hey everyone, Social Solipsist here for another episode of 52 and 52, and this week I'm taking a look at Elite Dangerous, which is an excellent little space sim. And I say little, and that is not accurate at all. It is enormous. Um, this is a game that I've been keeping an eye on for quite a long time. If I remember correctly, it got announced not too long after Star Citizen got announced, which those of you who are into the space sim genre may be familiar with, or you may just be familiar with it from all the press surrounding it. But both of these games, they share some similarities, obviously, being first-person space sims, that sort of thing. So I've been keeping an eye on both of them for quite a long time. Obviously, Star Citizen is not out yet. It's still heavily in development. They've been showing off some stuff recently, but I don't know that there's even a playable alpha of any kind or pre-alpha, although they have been showing off footage. Elite Dangerous, on the other hand, was released several years ago now, I think. From announcement to release was a relatively short amount of time, given the scale and detail in this game, and it's still a growing community. I think a lot of the people who intended to pick it up have picked it up at this point. I think as far as new players coming in, that group may have petered out somewhat at this point, especially now that Star Citizen is having more information come out about it. But that doesn't change the fact that they are continuously adding more content. I think there's 2 more planned DLCs that include a bunch of additional game, major game additions, and that's in addition to all of the DLC that's come out thus far, which has added quite a lot. Admittedly, I do not own this game. In fact, I am playing on Spencer's account because he bought it. We had joked about, myself and Red October and Spencer had all joked about picking it up, and Spencer took it a little more seriously than the rest of us and picked it up, and he was the only one who picked it up and started to play it and didn't find that he was enjoying it. So I asked if I could borrow his account to check it out, and I've really been having a really good time with it. To the point where it's been kind of a problem. He loaned it to me while he was away visiting Red October and Callabacter, and while he was gone, I put 20 hours into it in the course of a couple of days, which was not the best thing, but it puts into some perspective the amount of fun I was having with it. I can understand his concerns and dislike of it, though. This game is, by and large, not for everyone. If you don't know what you're getting into here, it's not gonna be what you think it is, probably. If you're not looking for more, like, if you're looking for something that's story driven, this is not really going to be it. This is more or less pure space sim through and through. There's quest lines and various factions with some lore behind them, but it's really more of a, drop into this world and enjoy the immersion that you get out of it. And that's really where I get the most enjoyment out of it, is just the pure level of immersion and emergent gameplay that I get out of it. Probably the most immersive game I've played in a very, very long time. And the emergent gameplay that comes out of the variety of things that can happen in the universe, it's really pretty incredible. I mean, I was kind of blown away again by my immersion of thinking about the fact that, you're playing the game as a guy sitting in a chair, which is more or less what you do in the game, or what you do in real life, rather. The parity between what you do in the game and what you do in real life is quite close, so it's easy to get immersed in that fashion. But on top of all of that, I was legitimately thinking things like, oh, okay, well, I got to warp to this place that's 3,000 light seconds away. Given my basic acceleration and stuff like that, and the stellar bodies that I have to pass by, that's going to take me about 3 minutes. That's enough for me to have a couple of bites of my food and take a drink here without having to worry too much, unless I get suddenly interdicted. And that's that kind of mindset of this is what my character in the game would probably be doing. He's got to eat sometime. He's not, it may be 1200 years in the future, but he's still got to eat and drink, presumably. So I would like to assume. So, that sort of thing really adds to the immersion for me. As far as emergent gameplay goes, I've been playing most of my time in solo mode, which is basically AI only, which makes it arguably a safer universe. But when I have played online, it's fun. It's fun to have nutty things happen to you. People interdicting you at random, is not the worst thing. The first time it happens to you, you think, oh God, somebody's pulling me out of warp. They're just going to blow me to hell just to be griefers. And I've been pulled out of warp. That's what interdicting is, by the way. For those of you not up on the terminology, when you get interdicted, you think you're going to die. And then most of the time, if it's another player interdicting you, they're usually not out to kill you. Unless you have a big bounty on your head and they have a good reason to kill you. Really, usually they're pirates. They're either, they either think you're suspicious and they want to check and give you a scan with their, for warrants, or, they are looking to do some piracy and have you, drop your gear and let them take it. Every time I've been interdicted and it's been a pirate, they've said, oh, you don't have anything? Okay, go on your way. I've never had anybody say, oh, you didn't have anything to drop for me, better kill you just to, be an asshole. And I think that has something to do with the type of people who play this kind of game. Partially because of, it's not something that's easy to get into for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the control scheme. Default controls are rather obtuse, and I would call it a lack of tutorial. There is a tutorial, but it's totally useless. So if you're not already familiar with the game, probably by watching somebody else play on YouTube or something like that, or watching a few tutorials, you are going to be totally lost as to what to do, how to control anything, what to set up your controls as. I tried playing with mouse and keyboard. I tried playing with a controller. I personally feel that if you are playing with this with anything other than a joystick, you are severely mistaken and doing yourself a disservice, not only in the difficulty of the game, but just the idea of, to me, I can't wrap my head out around controlling roll, pitch, and yaw on anything other than a joystick. It just, it's not only functionally more difficult, brain to controls, it is more difficult as well. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm a trained pilot or anything and that's more natural for me. No, that's just, in human brain functionality, I think that is just the natural means of control is a single control, a single stick, so to speak. So if you're not using a joystick, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. So on top of the rather obtuse intro to the game, and the arguable need for a joystick and some potentially some other specialty equipment, I'm using a $20 joystick that I bought like 4 years ago, and it has served me perfectly well. I may or may not add a link to that joystick in the description if you want to pick that joystick up, because it's done me just fine. But the other thing that makes this rather difficult for somebody who isn't at least a little bit dedicated to the idea of it, is just the fact that, you've got to do some math. If you don't have a at least a fairly basic understanding, like if you didn't take high school physics or some equivalent, have some equivalent level of knowledge, if you can't, if you don't have, if you can't read the Wikipedia page on, the theory of relativity and have a fairly good understanding of special and general relativity, and do acceleration, deceleration calculations, and distance calculations and things like that, you're going to have a much harder time. It's not going to be impossible, but you'll have a much harder time trying to figure out, how to maneuver in warp, in Super Cruise, that is, and just in general, having an understanding of thrust vectoring and stuff like that is also fairly important. Although I will say that the game does a very good job of simplifying physics where it needs to. I could get into the details of why, like, there's no momentum in Super Cruise because it's based on a theoretical warp drive that doesn't actually exist, but it actually does obey the laws of this theoretical drive, so there is no momentum, blah, 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 because you're not actually moving through space. Space is moving around you, but that's a whole other thing that I could get into. Honestly, I'd love to do a series on this game once I pick it up for myself. But yeah, if you're not willing to, mentally spend the time to understand the fundamental, like, rules of the universe, that's going to make things a lot harder. It's not for those of you who are longtime viewers or who maybe want to go back and watch, this is not EV Nova or anything like that. Although do go watch those videos. They're great. It's not super simple, super simple stuff. You do have to have, you do have to focus on what you're doing, and but it is rewarding, having that knowledge and having the focus and doing the math that you need to do to get where you want to go, and just being smart about what you're doing. I'm just blathering at this point, honestly, but I'm not easily able to sum up and articulate, some of my feelings on the subject. But really, I think it has an excellent marriage between, realistic controls and physics and stuff like that, and also not making it, this is not your insane person flight sim where you have to flip a dozen switches and turn 24 knobs and check your oil level at every 30 seconds to make sure you're not hemorrhaging oil or something like that. It's not that level of insanity. By all accounts, with my fairly rudimentary understanding of gravitation and relativity and physics and stuff like that, and a minor experience with some flight sims and general stuff like that, I was very comfortable with all of the systems within an hour or two. Honestly, the biggest problem getting to that point was honestly just getting the controls the way I wanted them to be. But again, I'm sort of blathering on at this point. As I said before, if you're looking for a deep story, this is not going to be it. If you want emergent gameplay, this is it. You can make money pretty fast to get a couple of ships well equipped. Like I said, I've put in 25 hours at this point. I've bought a couple of ships that when Spencer if Spencer ever decides to play again, he's welcome to use. Obviously, they're all his. I made a few million credits, and was able to equip a couple of nice ships. And the variety of things that open up as you buy more ships and get better equipment and stuff like that, and can jump further between stars. It all adds more and more, and it very naturally opens the game up as you get better, as you have more money, as you can get to new places, and you can get there quicker. uh, it opens up very naturally, and it's really an incredible piece of work. I'm not going to say that everything's perfect. It has had some various controversies over time, with various, mostly player complaints. Not like, oh, they've been siphoning money off the game company or something like that. No, no, no. I mean, like, within the game, within the community, there have been some complaints that have come up over various patches that broke certain things, or those sorts of things, overhauls of stuff that people wished hadn't been overhauled. But in my game time that I've played thus far, I've been more or less happy on all accounts. The complaints that I've had have been very, very minor. Not even worth mentioning, not anything that I could remember right now. And I'd be more than happy to. I was tempted to buy it during the autumn, Thanksgiving, whatever sale that was very recently on Steam, but I decided what I wanted to do instead was to make myself step back from the game a little bit, for a bit of time. Give Spencer his account back, and make sure that my feelings didn't wane, and I wasn't going to immediately get bored if I picked this up for myself. But I genuinely feel like the consistency with which you can have a different experience every single time you log in, will not leave me disappointed. And since there's no monthly subscription or anything like that, I think value for money is definitely there, as long as it's your thing. As long as you can watch somebody play the game and say, yeah, that the opportunities that are out there, and my motivation to go do one thing or another is if that's the kind of thing that appeals to you, I highly recommend it. It's really a fantastic game, and I'm looking forward to playing more of it. Yeah, I don't think I totally botched that voiceover, but I do know I blathered on a little bit. If you couldn't tell, I really did have a good time. So anyway, I'm hoping this came through, and you get some sense of what the game is like. And if you do play already, or if you want to play, I'll be happy to jump into a wing with you, if you're a viewer. So ping me one way or another in the comments or something like that, and we'll find each other. Anyway, I've been the Social Solipsist. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.